Retired SDRS members may choose to return to work after they retire. The laws governing SDRS do not prohibit a member from returning to work or an employer from hiring a retiree. It's important to note that SDRS must comply with IRS rules and regulations to maintain its tax-qualified status, which benefits all SDRS members. SDRS laws are designed to give employers and retirees as much flexibility as possible while also protecting SDRS's tax-qualified status with the IRS. A bona fide retirement requires a complete separation from service with an employer. This means the employment relationship has been terminated completely and the employee has no relationship with the employer in any capacity, employer-provided benefits have been severed, and the employee has been paid any sick and annual leave and remaining contract payments if applicable. To start, let's talk about returning to work for an employer who does not participate in SDRS, which means any employer that does not offer SDRS as part of its benefits package, typically a private employer. If you go back to work for a private employer in any capacity, you will continue to receive your monthly SDRS retirement benefits with no change. There are no restrictions when returning to work with an employer who does not participate in SDRS. Now, let's discuss returning to work for an SDRS-covered employer, that is, an employer who participates in SDRS. First, there are 4 specific criteria that must be satisfied. Number 1. You must have a bona fide retirement. This means you must have at least 3 consecutive calendar months of separation from service. During those 3 months, there cannot be any kind of relationship or employment with any SDRS-covered employer. Number 2. There must not be any formal or informal agreement regarding reemployment of any kind prior to your retirement and during the 3-month separation period. Number 3. Your termination must be certified by the employer. Number 4. The SDRS-covered employer hiring you must certify that you were subject to all proceedings for hiring and employment of a new employee. Returning to work for an SDRS-covered employer prior to meeting the 3-month separation invalidates your retirement status, and all retirement benefits must be repaid to SDRS with interest. Of note, a member is exempt from the 3-month separation from service if the member was at least age 59.5 at retirement and is hired by an SDRS-covered employer to work less than 1,250 hours in a fiscal year. We will discuss this scenario in further detail later. For SDRS purposes, when an SDRS retiree returns to work for an SDRS-covered employer, the number of hours worked determines the retiree's employment status as full-time or part-time. Full-time employment for an SDRS retiree is working 1,250 hours or more during the employer's fiscal year in any capacity, including temporary, seasonal, contractual, leased, or any other designation. Part-time employment for an SDRS retiree is working less than 1,250 hours during the employer's fiscal year. SDRS employers are required to report hours worked for SDRS retirees who are expected to work less than 1,250 hours. After you meet the 3 consecutive month separation, how will returning to work for an SDRS-covered employer affect your SDRS benefits? If you are hired to work full-time with 1,250 hours or more, your benefit will be reduced by 15% and you will lose the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, during your period of reemployment. Since you will be full-time, you and your employer will need to make contributions to SDRS as well. Your member contributions will go into your SDRS Supplemental Retirement Plan account. The contributions your employer makes will remain with SDRS to offset the costs of your return to employment. When you re-retire, your benefit will no longer be reduced, and once you've received your unreduced benefit for at least 12 consecutive months, the COLA will be reinstated. There is an exception if you are a Class B public safety member returning to work as a Class A member. In this scenario, you would be exempt from the benefit reduction and loss of COLA. Contributions from you and your employer are still required, however. Alternatively, if you are hired to work part-time with less than 1,250 hours, there will be no reduction to your benefit, no COLA suspension, and no contribution requirement during your period of reemployment. What happens if you're hired to work less than 1,250 hours but end up going over the 1,250 hours during the employer's fiscal year? The provisions for a retiree working more than 1,250 hours would apply prospectively. Your benefit would be reduced by 15% and you would lose the COLA. You and your employer will also need to make contributions to SDRS. Your member contributions will go into your SDRS Supplemental Retirement Plan account. The employer contributions will remain with SDRS to offset the cost of your return to employment. When you re-retire, your benefit will no longer be reduced, and once you've received your unreduced benefit for at least 12 consecutive months, the COLA will be reinstated. As mentioned earlier, a member who was at least age 59 and a half at retirement and is hired by an SDRS covered employer to work less than 1,250 hours has a special set of provisions. If you fit these criteria, you are exempt from the required 3-month separation of service. Your SDRS retirement benefit will not be affected. There will be no benefit reduction, COLA suspension, or contribution requirements. However, if you subsequently work over 1,250 hours during the employer's fiscal year, your benefit will be suspended prospectively until you re-retire. Avoid surprises. If you're contemplating a return to SDRS covered employment, it's important to contact SDRS prior to accepting any position to determine if and how your SDRS retirement benefits will be impacted. Our retirement planners are available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. Please, don't be afraid to reach out to our office with questions or concerns. Stay updated on news and benefits through our publications, member education videos, social media platforms, and other SDRS resources.